Well, who's the personality?
Well, okay.
Brings
We both have a
people.
lot of personality, Hagen. Come
Sure.
on.
That's one way to put it.
That's for sure. Well, welcome to the Calvary Chapel Salmon Podcast. So glad you could join us. Episode 9. Episode
Sheesh.
9, and we are looking fine today.
Are we?
Wow.
Yes, I'm joined with Hagen Miller, usual guest.
That's
Actually, every
Guest.
single time he's not
Not
a
a
guest.
co-host, just a guest.
No, he's the co-host. And then
I
our
am the
special.
host. You're the co-host.
Whoa, okay. Calm down there, Hagen. And we're also joined with special guest,
Oh.
very special guest, Taylor Furey.
Yeah.
Taylor, say hi to everyone.
Hello, everyone.
Yes.
Super happy to be here. Just
Good.
hanging out with the boys.
Yes,
Good.
yes.
Yeah.
Well, since we started this podcast, Jordan, I knew that sometime in the first 10 episodes, I would love to have Taylor join us as a guest. So
Well, you just
We've
barely
had,
made it with
yeah.
episode 9.
right in,
Yeah.
so that's good. We have a Chase on as a guest before, and that was a good time. But Taylor was someone I knew would bring a lot of good insight and stories and good conversation for what we're doing here. So we made it work. Usually we record on Mondays.
Yes.
But today's actually a Sunday,
Yeah.
right after church. We're staying late while Taylor's here in town to be able to
Hanging out.
drop this. So we're super.
So let's just say, Taylor, the expectations are way up
Okay,
here. Yeah,
wow.
this better be funny and
If you
good.
don't like it, you don't got to post it. We'll see
Okay.
what we
Oh,
come up with.
please. It's going up no matter what.
Okay.
Actually, Taylor, this is live. We were
Oh,
lying.
oh no.
Yeah.
I'm so sorry.
Yeah. No, it's not. So that's okay.
Okay, cool. Well,
But one
that's
of these days we want to do a live podcast. Like
Yes.
just have maybe even have an audience here.
Oh,
have like
wow.
a chat where
Laugh
people
track.
can chime in.
Yeah,
The
like a
whole- the whole
live
thing?
laugh track. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Maybe one day.
One day.
So one of those first couple podcasts we did, it was about our testimonies,
Mhm.
and I talked a lot about mine. And a huge part of my testimony has to do with my best friend Taylor, who's here with us today.
Mhm.
So I thought it would be cool to hear part of his story, and then how it leads up with how it intersects with mine, and then kind of the role he played in my life and my walk with Jesus spiritually, mine for him, and then kind of just where he's at today with serving the Lord. So that's kind of what I'm thinking. I know a lot about it because I was there. Jordan has heard a bit about it, but he doesn't know the details. So, Jordan, your job today on the podcast is to jump in and ask questions where maybe we're leaving out gaps.
Oh, for
Because
sure.
we know what's happening. But you're
Right.
like, wait a minute, how did you get to college? Or how did that happen? Or where
Why'd
did
you
this
drop out of
take place?
college?
Yeah,
What?
you're there to help fill in those gaps if the story doesn't seem to be flowing well for
Have
everyone
you gotten
else.
any degrees from college, Taylor?
No. Nope.
No.
No degrees. We're all right with it.
That's
though.
okay. That's okay.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
you get him started with your
Yeah,
your-
sure.
your
Yeah,
So,
you ask
questions.
let's
questions, I
see.
guess, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, so this is all going based off of episode 2, which was our testimony episode,
Mhm.
but maybe people haven't watched that one.
You should check
Maybe
it
they're
out.
watching them
It's
out of
good.
order. So, Taylor, tell us, how do you know Hagen? Where did your guys' friendship start? When you
Cool.
first saw Hagen, what was your reaction?
Yeah, okay.
Did you think he was cool right off the bat, or not really that cool?
Well, it started in 10th grade math class,
oh, wow.
and I knew he was smart, a lot smarter than me. And so
Smarter at math than Taylor, but not smarter at like technology
Well, yeah,
or
that-
reading. You're a much better reader than me.
yeah, that's fair. But I knew he was good at math, and I was like, hey, I need some help with my math homework. And so that's how it all started. Was he would just help me with like math assignments, and then we started going out to lunch like at school because it's high school, and we walk over to Subway, Burger King. I also knew he was very nice, and he would always buy me lunch too.
Because
Wait.
I always had a job in high school,
Yeah.
so I had steady income.
Yeah.
So we would go to Subway a lot, and we'd have like the usual.
Yep.
And they knew that Taylor would want buffalo chicken,
Yep.
foot-long Italian urban
Good
cheese.
choice,
Yeah.
Taylor.
And
like
I
the
had
buffalo
mine. And now the
chicken.
lady that used to work at Subway actually works at the bank, the credit union.
Yes.
Okay.
And I'm sure she still remembers us. Yeah,
Yes.
so it's
Yep.
great.
You ever go into the bank
She
and
moved
ask
up
for
in
your
life.
usual?
We moved up, and
Yeah.
and so
But yeah, so it just started as me just being like, just getting to know him, and then
Getting a free lunch.
well,
wouldn't you want to hang out with the
yeah,
guy?
that was definitely a benefit.
Yeah.
But no, as we got to know each other more, then we were challenged at youth group by Ty, the youth pastor, and the senior pastor, to like step out of your comfort zone and invite somebody who would come to youth group. And so I was like, well, I'll ask my new friend Hagen. And I know he said that part of the story during the previous episode. But and I had grown up in the church, Calvary Chapel movement. You know, we went to Calvary in Boise, and then we moved up to Salmon, went to, well, here, Calvary Chapel, Salmon. So it's always been just like a part of my life, but, you know, being in high school and whatever, I just never took it seriously.
Mm-hmm.
So one thing that was super cool was when Hagen and I, you know, started becoming better friends, and he came to youth group, and I just saw the reaction or the change that happened to him when he started, in my eyes, like, wow, he's taking this like kind of serious. Like he's something's changing here. And so that really had me just kind of reconsider, well, how come I don't have like that kind of relationship? You know, I'd read my Bible and I'd pray and I knew what was good and what was bad, and was I perfect? No. But there wasn't that sense of the relationship.
Yeah.
So basically Hagen was a huge influence on what it looks like to take your relationship with Jesus seriously and what can happen when you do that. So he started jumping in, serving, playing guitar, you know, just getting real deep into the Word. So then at school, we'd, you know, read our Bibles together, talk about the Lord, and ask questions, because he was asking questions that I never thought to ask, because he was looking at it from a whole different perspective. You know, he's like, what is the Trinity? Why are there only so many books in the Bible?
Taylor,
Like,
what is the Trinity?
it's confusing. It's a mystery that we'll figure out later.
Yeah.
But so I was like, man, these are some good questions. And so we'd figure out answers together, like, why do I believe what I've been saying I believe this whole time is, you know, 15, 16 years old. And we just, we're just joined at the hip, and just we're exploring Christianity, you know, together, and started serving together. And, you know, long short of it, then and because we were bonding over that, you know, the Lord, I think that's why our friendship is so strong and deep, because, you know, the Lord's in it. You know, he brought us together, and he's, just kept us in to be best friends. And it's been, I don't know, 15 to now. So that's like 12, 13 years or something.
Yeah.
And there's definitely been some, you know, different seasons of friendship. But without a doubt, you know, I know that if I ever had to call anybody, or anybody I need help with anything, like he's the guy I go to. And it's you always, if you find a friend like this, hold on to them, and it's a very special thing. And not everybody has that kind of friendship. So when you find it, realize it, and protect it, and don't let stupid stuff get in between you. You know, figure things out, talk things out, and we've had to do that quite a lot actually. So but
some
at the end of the day,
therapy.
Yeah, I
fights.
guess you could call it that. But just, well, kind of like when he was teaching a few weeks ago, you know, having that love for somebody to tell him the truth, even if it's going to hurt him.
Yeah.
And he said, I do that a lot to Taylor, and he has for, I mean, countless times we've had those difficult conversations. But I needed to hear him, and he has a good way of getting that into my head. Like, hey, you need to buck up, figure this out, you know, quit being dumb. And every time, you know, even if I was upset with him, you know, I could still give him a hug or shake his hand and be like, thank you. Like, I appreciate you caring about me that much to even say that, you know, because sometimes family doesn't even go that far. They kind of watch from afar, and they're like, oh, we're worried about you, and or whatever, and, you know, but, so that's kind of jumping
For
a
sure.
lot.
Yeah.
Any
I wanted to
questions?
ask, so like growing up in the church and you were going to youth group, was youth group something that like you wanted to go to, or was it kind of like forced on you by your parents, or is like, I'm super excited to be here even though I don't know a lot, or how was that kind of
it was always
attitude?
fun, because I mean, even when I was a little kid in Boise, I mean, we would go to, like, the Calvary there has a school, and so I was, as a kid, the kids that were at the youth group I was going to school with. And then when we moved here to Salmon, I went to the Seventh-day Adventist school, because before Heritage started, that was the only Christian school.
And what grade was that?
That was 5th grade and 6th grade.
Okay.
And then, you know, I met some friends who were going to the Seventh-day Adventist school and the Seventh-day Adventist church, but I don't think any of them started going to Calvary until we all got older and were going to the Calvary youth group. But when the Calvary youth group started, there was maybe like 5 or 6 of us, and I was the youngest. All the other kids were, well, I would have been, I don't know how old I was, but
You were the annoying younger kid.
Yeah,
who
I was
just hanging
yeah.
around the
Well,
old.
it was like Jacelyn, Jacob, just the older kids, you know. So there wasn't a whole lot of kids coming, but by the time Hagen was invited, you know, because that was like the challenge, like we need to get more kids coming.
Yeah.
So by the time like Hagen and I were getting super involved and like we became like the older kids, then, you know, the grades, you know, below us, all those kids started coming. And yeah, it was cool to see just the generations that were coming to the youth group and, you know, seeing where it started to, well, where it's at now with
For
you
sure.
teaching on Thursdays. Just having that whole structure and just seeing the Lord work through generations. But yeah, youth group's always been fun, and it's a great way to make godly friends and be an influence.
Yeah,
You know?
that sounds like it.
Yeah. So
For sure.
I've always liked it, and yeah, it's. I think it's an important thing for communities to have. So
Yeah.
Mhm.
As far as you guys doing that stuff at the high school together, like
Mhm.
asking each other questions, I
Yeah.
know Hagen mentioned before there was maybe a mini little revival at the high school.
Yeah.
Hagen said like that. You talk about that.
Yep. So
what
like
happened there?
some of those kids that I mentioned that were a little bit younger than us, so like a grade or 2 below us, when that whole group was going, I mean, it was probably a group of 7, 8, maybe 9 or 10 of us, like pretty solid, pretty, you know, regular going to church and youth group, having Bible studies, you know, at the high school, praying around the flag.
Oh, wow.
You know, and I think what was cool about that is, well, there wasn't as many hot topics in society as there are now, because this is 10 years ago, but a lot of
No litter boxes in the bathroom.
Right, yeah. It was
Yeah.
mainly just like, is being gay a choice? Should kids be allowed to pray at school?
Just Pokemon demonic. Just basically.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
know, like it was. I mean,
Freaking
honestly, like
Simpler days.
it
yeah.
was,
Pocket
it was,
demons.
it was more mild for sure, but it was still enough of an, you know, I don't think, what's the word? It was still like pushing up against the social boundaries, where it's like, you know, this is where we're gonna start losing value in society. And there's actually like, we actually had a speech class together. We had a lot of classes together. And I didn't cheat with his work on all
Unlike
of them.
the math.
Unlike math.
Yeah, yeah.
Math was not my strong suit. But we had a speech class together, and he gave a speech on hot topics in society from a Christian perspective. And if you even have that speech still, you should read it, because
I would have it. I'd have to dig, but yeah.
because a lot of the stuff, like he's like, if we because I think back then we were voting on, you know, like gay marriage and stuff.
The Obama days,
Yeah.
yeah.
And so, you know, in that speech, and it's stuck in my head, you know, he said, like, if we allow this, just wait what happens 10 years from now. And sitting in that class as juniors, seniors, it's like, what could happen? And, well, now
Here
we
we
know.
are.
Here we are.
Yeah.
So it's like, and I think a lot of us saw that. We saw that, the wokeness, and I don't know if that was even around back then. I think it was just liberal.
Yeah, we were pre-woke.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
That's crazy.
So I mean,
I barely remember the pre-woke days.
well,
yeah.
it was a simpler time.
Yeah,
there was
yeah,
still
yeah.
weird stuff
I was still in
going on.
diapers in the pre-woke
Really?
days. Yeah.
Are
You were like
I'm
11, right?
Yeah, I'm about.
Oh, I don't think you were in diapers then. That's why.
Pull up.
Yeah,
By
yeah,
the
yeah.
time
Pull
you're
up.
11.
No,
Yeah.
no, not by 11.
Just when you sleep.
Well,
at
you're
night,
how old are
were.
you, Taylor?
28.
Yeah, and I'm
We're
like
the same
20,
age.
so it's like 8 years.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah,
8 years apart.
That tracks.
Yeah,
But what I think why there was that revival is because we were noticing, you know, as 18-year-olds, like, like this isn't good. This isn't good news. Like, this isn't just a fad or just weird ideas. Like, this is the reality that they want. And so I think we really banded together to protect, you know, what our parents taught us.
Oh,
That's
wow.
interesting, because I don't even like that part of it doesn't even stick out to me that much.
Oh.
So it's good to hear that
Yeah.
perspective, because I couldn't quite put my finger on it. And I think we had a pastor who did a good job of getting us involved and like serving.
Yeah.
So we had ownership in youth group, would you say?
Yeah.
So now we're serving together. We have other kids that are serving with us.
Yeah.
We feel like it's our thing, kind of.
Right. Yep.
We're inviting people to our thing.
Yep.
We have responsibility. We're understanding the joy of the Lord and serving Him. So that was, to me, that was a big part of it as well.
Yeah, I'd agree 100% because, I mean, because the kids, like our other kids at school would see that we were, we were like different, we were like the Jesus freaks, you know, and some of them, like some of the kids, like you would never imagine stepping into church on a Sunday. They were getting like curious. They're like, huh.
We had some so I love it about church, and it's the same with youth group. Yeah, like some kids that you would never think would come. They came at least once, which is cool.
Yep.
It's like, whoa, this guy came or that group came.
Well,
it's I can't believe they stepped into church.
Yeah, like we were practicing worship one night, and some of what we considered the cool kids,
like the cool kids,
wow.
you wouldn't think that would be a part of this.
Yeah,
come through our doors.
like the poster child, like cool kids, but not the ones you'd see at church, and they came and like we were like, whoa, like why are like do they know that tonight's youth group? Like what are they doing here? And they stuck around and they had questions, and you didn't. And sometimes you talk to them more at school, and it just opened up a lot of opportunity because we were willing to be bold.
Yeah.
And that story probably brings up confusion because you're thinking, Hagen, weren't you and Taylor the cool kids?
Right. Who could be cooler than you guys? Well, I don't know.
I wanted to ask Taylor, since you've known Hagen for so long, what's the silliest thing Hagen's ever done?
Silliest thing he's ever done?
Yeah. It's like, man, Hagen, that was silly. Why'd you do that?
I don't know, probably put up with me for this long.
Oh, please.
Yeah. No,
come on, you got something.
He's a pretty level-headed guy.
Oh, come on.
I can't.
When your friend gets on a podcast, I'm for sure. I bet we have story after story after story. Because I've known you for like 2.5 years. I can list 10 things
I can
off
list
the
a few
top of my
crazy
head.
things you've done.
Okay.
But no, that's a good question.
Yeah.
But no, I mean, just all around.
Has he always just been like this? Like
level-headed? Yeah.
Well, not level-headed, but
He's
just
a
kind of like his
constant.
personality.
Good-looking, funny. What do you
Yeah,
like,
no,
Jordan?
just like his personality's just like because he's a unique personality for sure.
Yeah.
And so have you seen a evolution of Hagen
Could
Miller?
you describe my personality, Jordan?
I couldn't actually.
I've never heard you.
Yeah, I couldn't.
describe me as
You're
unique.
very. Yeah, you're very unique.
He's very unique, and I mean,
I couldn't describe your
if you look
personality.
at Hagen from high school and Hagen now, he's what's it called when I don't know.
Is he
Mature?
more confident?
Well,
Getting younger.
he's just really just coming to his own.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
He's just more confident in
Oh, yeah.
himself.
Oh yeah. 100%.
So there's a time where Hagen was like, I don't know.
Well, I think everybody's like that.
Well, for
especially when you're younger. But yeah.
Well, I don't
no.
think there was a time when I wasn't confident.
Well,
I believe that.
Yeah.
Well,
Confidently wearing your goofy clothes.
Oh
yes.
please.
if it works, it works.
If it works, it works. Okay. So
But yeah, basically, I don't remember what the question was, but
I was just trying to get any dirt on Hagen out of you.
well, there's not much. He's a pretty stand-up guy.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Huh. So that's high school. Pretty
school.
cool.
Sure,
And then
yep.
you graduate and go off to.
Yeah. Well, so
college?
this is where I get my wandering in the desert season.
Okay.
Of life.
Do tell.
So I was going through like a season of, I don't know if it was doubt, but what it was, it wasn't doubt, because I never doubted the Lord and I never doubted his presence. But what I did have a hard time with is the understanding God's will. And this was really difficult for me. Like like the message this morning, I was a very like black and white kind of person. So when I'm getting to this stage of life, when you're 18, 19 years old, trying to figure out the rest of your life in the course of a summer, I was like, well, I need the Lord's counsel. So I'm like doing devotions and I'm praying. I'm talking to like mentors in my life. And I'm like, how do I understand God's will? How do I, and and I had these expectations of like, he would speak to me like verbally, or
is it because you've heard other people and they need guidance and they're saying, well, the Lord told me to do this, or God opened this door. So you're like, well, when's it my turn?
Yeah, exactly.
So you're looking for this in your life.
Yeah, and I just wasn't getting anything. And so I was like pretty like, well, and then there was one specific or a handful of conversation I'd have with, I don't want to name names, but mentors that I had in my life. And they kind of made it feel like it was my fault that I wasn't hearing anything. And I was pretty like, upset about
So like
that.
you're not hearing from God because you're not serious or you're not praying enough or you just need to read more.
Yeah, and like that was like almost verbatim what I was told.
And that did a lot of damage to you spiritually, which is good for us to hear as pastors.
Yeah.
Because the easy thing is someone coming in feeling confused or cloudy and think, well, just read your Bible and pray and it'll all work itself out.
Right. Or you have something that you're not giving over to the Lord. And I'm like, I'm 18 years old. Like I don't even know like I haven't been able to, because when you get to that age, you don't have your parents making decisions for you. Like you're responsible. I mean, and you're making those decisions. And I was terrified. Like my number one fear, it's not heights. I'm scared of heights. Not my number one fear. Not the dark. Not it's being wrong.
Oh wow.
And that's
deep.
That's because
fear.
well, and that's because
I
was so instilled with the expectation of like the answers are out there, you just have to find them. And that comes from questions about life to questions about the Lord to how to manage money to how to buy a car. Like all these things you're now tasked with, and it's like, well, everyone's been able to make these decisions before, so what were they doing? And so I'd read and I'd go ahead.
I was just gonna ask, like, during that time, did you ever hear anyone say, "Well, hey, just go with the flow and God will guide you"? Like, no one in your life was like, "Yeah, just it's not a big deal where you go to school. God will correct you. It's not a big deal if you like God can guide you." Like, you never heard that.
They might have said that, and I was just.
But you didn't hear it.
Yeah, I was like, I had like what's it called? Analysis paralysis. So I was just. You ever heard of that?
Yes.
So like,
So
I was
like
just
paralyzed.
Decisions.
Because you're analyzing everything, you get paralyzed.
So I was overthinking, and essentially I got to a point where like, I was like, we did go to school. So this is after a year of ISU. So this is where all this started, because I thought we were just going to go to school together and graduate, and
high school ends.
Yeah.
Yes.
What to do next?
We went to ISU for a year.
Go to ISU.
That wasn't hard.
That was an easy decision.
Because we were going together.
Okay.
And we made that decision together.
Makes sense.
But this is when the Lord told Hagen to go back to Salmon.
Oh, no.
And
he
so
left you high and dry.
Yeah, so I knew for a whole semester, I'm going to go back to college because that's what I was told to do. And that was the expectation set on me. And he was told to go back to Salmon and just figure it out. And I'm like, whoa. What does that mean? And this is where I had to realize, like, I was like semi like codependent on him as a pillar of just stability, I guess. Because of the short background, I didn't have a whole lot of stability growing up. I had divorced parents, and so I was always bouncing between two different households, which two different sets of rules, all that kind of stuff. So I just have a hard time being independent, is what I've realized. I'm a lot better now at 28, which is good. But
which is good because some people never deal with that kind of stuff.
And
so it's good that you've
I had to do a few years of a lot of just I need to get my stuff together.
For sure. Yeah.
So anyways, long story short, then he's come back to Salmon. So now I come back to Salmon, and I'm just
for the summer.
And I got a summer to figure stuff out. Am I going back to ISU? Am I moving down to Utah? Am I staying in Salmon? What am I going to do here? And I was just lost on what to do. And that's when I was like, how do I know I'm in God's will? Does God want me to go to Utah because I have family up there and there was jobs up there so I can make a little bit more money?
And by up there, he means down there, just so we're all clear.
Yeah,
because Utah is down.
Yeah, it is, yes.
He does this.
I won't. I just say if I'm going somewhere, it's going up to there. But a lot of people
put yourself at the low point, right?
Yeah,
everywhere else is up.
Everywhere, you can always go up from here. But
it's like in the Bible, Jerusalem's always up.
Yes, right.
So going up to Jerusalem. Yeah,
I did not know that. I'll have to, that's a good word study?
Yeah,
it's on a hill.
Geographically,
generally up from what's around it. So, but
and Jesus always, even though he's going south, it says he's going up to Jerusalem because Jerusalem's the high place.
Well, that makes
sorry.
That's good to know.
Yeah.
Okay. But anyway, so that's where I'm getting this analysis paralysis.
Yeah,
just what
that's
to
crazy.
Do with
and so that's just like a summer of confusion.
Yeah, and he's got his life figured out. From the outside looking in, he's got it all figured out.
Was he like a mailman or something at this point?
Well, I think
what are you?
Construction.
Okay.
Construction.
Well, I came back and worked for the Frenches during that summer, and then eased into mailman. Yeah. Then to Dali's.
And he was like making money, and like I think you moved out of your parents' place, like had a rental.
Sheesh.
or you were in the process
sure,
of doing it.
yeah.
And I was like, whoa.
Yeah.
You know, I was living with my Nana and Papa, which, you know, thanks so much for letting me live with you guys. But I was like, I need to, like, grow up. And so...
How old are you? You're like 19, 20 years old, man. You got to get out.
19 or 20.
Yeah.
So...
you were basically wasting away. You're so old.
That's how it felt.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
and
how it can feel, yeah.
So I made a bad decision, Jordan.
Okay.
So what I did is I decided to put in my 2 weeks of my job, move to Utah.
Were you working at the Stagecoach?
I was working at the hotel, down the road.
Yes.
So I just put in my 2 weeks, and this is where I did in Israel. I did not seek the counsel of the Lord. And
which is interesting because you like spent the whole summer trying to.
Well, and I don't like saying this, but what I told the Lord was like, you know what I need, so you tell me. And I never heard anything. And I it's essentially like, you know, like when the prophets are all like, oh, woe is me, like here's an ultimatum, like just kill me, you know. Not that bad. I didn't want to die. But I was like, I don't know what I need. You do. So, you know, and it was like a faith issue. Like I was like, if you can't help me with this, then I don't think I want to do this anymore. And I never heard anything. And I was like, fine, I'll figure it out myself, which was a horrible decision to make. And
were you like conscious of all these decisions as you were making them, or is it like looking back?
Well, I told Hagen, I'm like, you know what, so I took him to Bertram's. We sat down and got some food.
I remember when he told me he was going to move to Utah.
Yeah,
and I just felt like this is a terrible decision, but I knew he needed to do it.
Yeah, and so I'm like, hey, I put in my 2 weeks. I start a job for a home security company in 2 weeks, and I'll see what happens. And the reason why it was, there's two reasons why it was super dangerous. Number one, I didn't seek the counsel of the Lord. Number two, I was confident because I was making the decision by myself. So I had that kind of like, you know, I can do it.
This is me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I moved to Utah, and then I was there for 4 or 5 years, and I don't want to go into details, but I was basically like proclaiming atheism, you know. Well, I flirted with the idea of being agnostic, and I was like, you know what, I'm just going to go all into the other side of the spectrum.
Real quick, when you go there,
to Utah,
do you do church at all?
I tried, but because I couldn't find like what I considered like a chill, not that I was looking for chill as in like lenient on sin, but just like I wanted to go to a Calvary chapel. And for some reason, it was... We
had a hard time finding a church in Pocatello, too.
Yeah.
We hopped around a lot. We finally landed back at the Calvary Chapel. There's a different pastor than who's there now. But it's kind of hard when you leave your home church and then you're in a new place and you're trying to find another one.
There's a lot of
comparison. Because you want it to be kind of just like
feels
home,
like
and you can't.
Yeah.
And, this teaching's kind of good, but the worship ain't good. And this worship's good, but I hate the message.
Yep.
And we become what we as pastors despise, and that's critics.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and it was hard for me to find a home church with like Hagen, like being there, because like, you know, there was a few times where in college I was like, I don't know, man, like I don't know, and we'd have conversations a lot, but I really went downhill when I went to Utah because I didn't have him, you know. I basically was using the whole rediscovering myself, you know, deal. So I got back into school and then made some, not the best types of friends, got into the wrong crowd, you know, and it was just a lot of wandering, you know. And I get super close to, like, making a breakthrough and, like, this isn't right. I need to do better. You know, I need to go back to the Lord. And I just make excuses. Well, after X amount of years of this, you know, something kept telling me, like, you need to go back to Salmon. And I was like, well, you know, I got commitments here. I got a job. You know, there's no jobs for me there. Well, and this is all internal dialogue, you know, and it was the Holy Spirit, you know. And I just come like, what is this? Like, why, you know, I don't need to do that. Well, then Hagen calls me 2020. And also real quick too, this whole time I'm in Utah, he'd come up and visit me, and we would there was one time specifically, we were at your hotel getting breakfast at the Continental, whatever, the free breakfast. And it was supposed to be like a real quick, like,
I'm leaving that morning. Do you have time to get together and have breakfast before I leave?
Yeah. And if there's the same moment we're thinking of, it was like 4 hours of pretty much arguing.
Oh, wow.
You know, and this is where I tie back to where, you know,
because he's been reading Sam Harris books. I don't know if you know who that is, but he's a philosopher and into kind of atheism or agnosticism. So he's getting all this fresh ideology that's maybe
enticing or
It's-
allowing me to
Justify
justify
whatever you
the
want.
season of
Yeah.
life that I'm in, because like, well, he's a smart guy.
Yeah.
know?
So we were kind of wrestling about those type of things.
Mhm.
But throughout all that, but then I reached a point somewhere along the way where I realized, and this kind of ties into what we were talking about today, which for the listeners would be last Sunday on our Romans 14 message. And it's like, there's a point where it's like, okay, if I'm going to keep being friends with this person, I want to encourage them in Jesus,
Mhm.
but I also don't want to just like jam it down their throat.
Mhm.
So somehow I just need to be okay where he's at in life right now.
Yeah.
And it's like,
Yeah.
I got to be okay with that
And that probably wasn't easy.
so that I can still have a friendship. Right.
Yeah.
And I think that's hard for a lot of parents with kids that maybe backslide, because you just want to represent Jesus so well, which is a great heart. But you actually, because you're just so intense, you're actually driving a wedge in a relationship between a friend or your kid or whatever. And it's like, I don't love the path this person's on right now, but I have to be okay with where they're at if I'm going to continue to have a relationship to where I can speak into their life when Jesus is actually opening the door.
Right. Which
Yeah.
and he opened them all the time. Because this whole time I'm wandering around, and now he's a senior pastor, and I'm like, what the heck? Like, what is going on? And I'd still come up here and visit him. I'd still go
Okay.
to church.
So do you remember when I called you and told you about that? Because you were one of the only people I actually kind of called a week ahead of time that I had a heads up.
So I don't remember the
Or
phone
texting
call,
about
but
it
I
or something.
remember it was like I had came up here, and we were in your new office at
Okay.
the old building, and I remember I think you'd been doing it for maybe like a week or two.
Mm.
So I remember that conversation, because I was like, whoa,
Mm.
how's it going? Like, what is going on here? I'm like, I didn't, like, what? Because last I heard, he was doing either construction or the mailman thing.
Yeah, Dally's
Yeah.
construction.
Yeah. And so it was, and that was I'm like, huh. Because, like I remember, or like I was telling you, in high school, we were kind of figuring things out together,
Okay.
and now.
Growing together.
Growing together, yeah. And so now I'm over here doing the whole 40 years in the wilderness deal, and he's, just getting deeper and deeper and deeper with the Lord. And it wasn't about the position, being a senior pastor, but it was the fact that he was able to just go that far with the Lord and get that knowledge and get that opportunity and step out in faith and do that. And I was like, that spoke a lot to me. But what was interesting is, in our human ways, I would get like, well, he just keeps getting, because in my mind, I'm like, he's got it all figured out. And I was like jealous, and I was pretty upset. And so that drove me even further into the wilderness, because I was hungry for knowledge and to feel like I was doing something right. And I thought I'd already given the whole Jesus thing a try, an honest, earnest try, and it didn't do it. So I was like, there's got to, it's just, and so I was just hungry to figure out what would work. And then, eventually the Lord's like, hey, you already know, like, come on, like,
Yeah.
you've known this all along. And it was a real, like, classic, like, come to Jesus moment, like, the whole sobbing, and, like, it was, like, just in your soul. Like,
So when was that?
Yeah.
this would have been, like,
Were you in Utah? Or were you in
like March
Salmon?
or April of 2020.
Yeah.
And then I moved in November back here of 2020.
Oh, okay, cool. So before you
believe.
came back to Salmon,
Yeah.
you were like,
Well,
shoot.
because basically I was like, I got to get out of here.
Did the world ending affect that? Like, did the
Oh, yeah.
climate of 2020 like wake you up a little?
Yeah, well, because there was riots happening outside.
Okay, wow.
Not outside my house, but like a few blocks away from my house. Like
riots,
from
protesting.
the COVID stuff,
Okay.
yeah, and everything else going on back then. And so I was like, this is crazy. And there was one point where I think I even texted him. I'm like, are you still here on Earth? Because stuff was
You thought the rapture had
Yeah.
happened. You were left. That's
exactly like.
Hey.
That's the place I was
Jordan's
at.
thought that before.
That is the
Yeah.
place I was at. I was like, I am so removed from the Lord that I wouldn't be. And I don't believe you can lose your salvation. So that was definitely like just I was freaking out moment. But I was like, ooh, like this is gnarly. Like I need to, number one, get out of the city because the city's crazy. Number two, I need to get back into relationship with the Lord and Christians. I had zero Christian friends, pretty much. Other than phone calls with family in Hagen, no real Christian influence for 4 or 5 years, and I was just dry as a bone when it came to just my spiritual life.
Yeah, I wanted to ask, in the middle of that, you're independent, you're in Utah, you're working, you're making your own money, you're getting to do whatever the heck you want. Are you happy? How are you feeling? No. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, it was very surface level, but like I'd go to bed at night and I'm like, you know better.
Okay.
Like, this isn't you.
So there was a state of miserableness, right?
Oh yeah.
Because you are a kid of the king.
Yeah.
And you're kind of living in the pigsty,
and
you are.
Yeah. And we basically and like it's. I mean, even if quote unquote sin can be fun, it's like it's not. Like conviction and the Spirit, like they take the fun right out of it. And it's like like
the Holy Spirit sucks up all the fun.
Yeah, and it's just like man, like. And like I know what I need to do. And so there was a job opening up here in Salmon, and I was like, well, Lord, I'm struggling, but I'm gonna pray about this because basically I was trying to. This was a big move, and I was leaving some commitments behind, and so I was like, I'm gonna seek your counsel this time, and so I prayed for a month. I'm like, if this is what you want me to do, don't let that job get filled. Let me apply. And like this is March, April, and I applied this is September now. So like a month and a half after the big old revelation of like I need to fix myself. So or not fix myself, but let the Lord fix me. So
and you had that revelation, and then like, did you just call up Hagen and family and say, hey, I'm changed, or like what did you do? Like what was kind of the step-by-step play there?
I probably had more conversations with him like we'd had in the past, and I was like listening to Bible studies again.
Okay,
I found my old Bible. I was reading my Bible, but I wasn't going to church still.
Okay,
and so this is like March, April, September-ish time, and so then I prayed for that month, and it was October, and so then I applied to the job in September, and then in November I moved back here, and then was living with Hagen. Getting plugged in back to church, being an usher, doing sound, doing cameras, and I started a whole new industry. Before I was working for a handful of companies like home security, web design, but then I got into like IT and like learned a whole new skill set and still working in that industry now, and that's cool. But as far as like the testimony portion, it was a lot of wilderness wandering, and then the Lord's like, You're ready.
And was it just kind of like a 180, like, okay, I'm done with this sin, I'm done with this crap, I'm going home?
Yeah.
Just kind of big change, just like light bulb?
I packed the car,
Yeah.
And if it didn't fit in the car, it wasn't coming with me.
Okay, right.
I left furniture. I just packed up what I could and left.
Yeah. And then, like, you were just happier right away.
Oh,
you just had joy right away. Wow.
I
that's
mean,
awesome.
there was a video on my other phone of the first morning I woke up in Salmon. You know, woke up nice and early. It was quiet. Because, again, coming from the city, it's super loud. And
yeah.
So it was quiet. And I took a video, and I look at it from time to time because it's like that was a huge just being back here in the valley, but also what that meant for me, like just going forward. Like this is a new season of life, and I have learned so much about my relationship with the Lord in the last 4 years than any books that I've read just from or Bible studies I've listened to just from the just work that He's done in my heart. Like, yeah, I mean, if I met who I was even 4 years ago, let alone 5, 6 years ago, it's like, I'm leagues away, but I still have more leagues to go for what the Lord wants to do in my life. But it's been quite a adventure.
For sure.
Yeah.
So moving forward, you're back here. You get married. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Meet this girl at Young Adults, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. So yep. JC and I met at our the young adult study that I don't know if it's still going, but
it will be, sure. We're gonna do it in the summer.
Okay, cool deal. Yeah. Well, if we're up here, we'll go.
Okay, cool.
But yeah,
I have a theory about that, but
what?
No, I don't. I disagree with his theory
I don't know
about
if we
that.
should bring it up on the podcast.
We'll just argue about it.
Yeah,
we're gonna have
actually
it.
our biggest fight going on right now. But
well, I'm curious. We'll talk about that afterwards.
Okay.
But yeah, so we got married, and I've been married almost 2 years now, so that's cool. And we were just the wife and I serving together. And then, we're looking for a house and just can't find a house here in Salmon. So we're just praying about
we
it.
were living in a camper.
Oh, well, yeah, we lived in a camper for 8 months.
You weren't living with Hagen?
No.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah. After
Married people are not allowed to live with me.
That's a
That's
good
one of
rule.
our
Yep.
rules.
So actually,
Good.
2 weeks before we got married, some friends that we know were like, "Hey, you want to live in our camper?" And we're like, "Sure."
So interesting part of the story.
Yeah.
So literally, Jordan comes the day before Taylor gets married.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
Jordan moves to Salmon. He has to sleep one night in the basement of the K house. And then Taylor moves out, gets married. Jordan moves into
Yeah.
Taylor's room.
yeah.
So that's
kinda
how
crazy.
Jordan now ties into the
Yes,
timeline of where
yes.
we're
in
at.
this timeline.
Yes.
And I remember
Yeah.
the first time meeting you, you were just.
I might have been.
We
a little
won't have to get
cranky.
into it, but you were kind of grumpy about something
Yeah.
at the wedding or whatever.
Yeah,
and like you just, I was like, oh, hey, and I was just starry-eyed, bright, like, oh, hey, I'm Jordan. You were just like, whatever,
Yeah,
like
I
so
was-
it was
grumpy.
a stressful
And then we went
time.
out to dinner, and you were so. Wait, yeah, we went out to dinner, but that was before. That's when I was here with Zach.
Okay.
Yeah. So
earlier in the year.
the first 2 times I met you, you were pretty
It was-
grumpy,
yeah,
which is interesting because now you're like a super happy guy.
Yeah, if I'm pretty high strung.
Okay.
And
He's wound pretty tight.
yeah,
Yeah.
and so sometimes, especially when it's like a new person,
Okay.
I just can't.
You
I
can't
just sometimes
can't
I'm like,
even.
I'm sorry. Like I just get a little cranky.
Yeah,
sometimes.
that's okay.
But now,
Yeah, now we're chilling. Yeah.
Yeah.
When we were
You're-
having
you were
pizza
good.
at those people's house, making our pizza, yeah, he was not happy.
He
to
was
be
Yeah.
there.
so fun.
yeah,
So
yeah.
funny.
But it's okay because with that I've been working on that.
Oh,
Okay,
you're
yeah, you're
doing
chilling.
good.
Yeah, new people can be hard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, and that's where we met, and then over the last while, we've all just kind of, I'd say, built a pretty good friendship. We know we
Wow.
went camping once. That
We
was
did.
fun.
Yeah.
On
That was
top
fun.
of the Continental Divide.
Yeah, no
I look at
tents
those
or
pictures
nothing.
a bit frequently, and I'd like to do that again.
Yeah,
That would be fun. Yeah.
we've tried to do it every
Even
year,
just
but
a night.
stuff always happens.
But-
Yeah.
But yeah,
For sure.
But then you're not living in Salmon anymore. Which
Yes,
is why we have to
exactly.
stay late for church to do this podcast while you're
Yes.
here, because
Yeah.
where are you?
Well, yeah. So now the wife and I, we live in Du Bois, Idaho, about 2 hours. What would that be? East something. 2 hours. Yeah. That
Yeah.
way.
Southeast, yeah.
Southeast. Yeah. And how that happened is I was just
Up in Du Bois.
up in Du Bois. Yeah, that actually is up. We're higher elevation over there. But I was just applying for jobs, and we were just like, basically with every application sending out, I'm like, Lord, open or close it, And I've really learned my lesson, like, get the Lord's counsel, and it's been really good. Every time you do that, He directs you where you need to go. And so with every application I was sending off, or the wife was sending off, we just like open the door or close the door. And he closed quite a few of them, and then he opened the one up in Du Bois. And so, I put in my 2 weeks, and we moved down there. And the first few months were hard. We had a hard time just kind of getting involved. We were kind of homesick, especially me. The wife grew up there, so she knew the community and the people, but not so much. So I had a hard time in the first little bit. But now we're super involved in the community. We started a youth group with 2 of our friends, so there's 4 of us leaders. So serving the Lord in that capacity, and then we have a teaching rotation for Sundays. So I teach once or twice a month, going through the book of Joshua. Super cool. This summer we got a lot of fun plans to start a few other ministries and get together with you guys. And
Yeah.
Go ahead, yeah.
Let's talk about that a little bit, because I'm
Okay.
just curious how that took place, because what's cool to see how that took place, because here you were definitely involved, but it seemed
Yeah.
like you had limits.
yes,
And I don't, for whatever reason, and that's cool, but it's
Yeah.
like then you go there and it's like you see these
need,
opportunities and
yeah.
these needs,
Yeah.
and I don't know if there's no longer any reservation, or there still is, and you're just pushing through with it to fill that need,
Yeah.
which opens up doors where now you're actually able to teach the Bible on a Sunday morning
right.
to a church.
Yeah.
So what was there a shift in your thinking about it, or was it just like
No, I've just over the last so with getting married, there was a lot as a man and now a husband I had to really just like own up to and like just step up, because I was now a provider and and eventually kids and all that jazz. So it's like there's a lot I just need to learn as a man.
eventually,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. Yes. So there was just a lot I needed to learn as a man. And so a lot of that was the Lord saying, well, you need to trust me more, step out in faith, and know that I'm going to take care of you. You know, yes, you are the provider for your home, but who provides for you? And it's like, oh, you do. And so now, you know, when I see opportunity, you know, it's like if the Lord wants me to do this, then it's going to work out. And if there's an opportunity and I try something and the Lord's like, oh, that's not quite you, you know, quite for you. And so that's kind of how it was where the previous, you know, pastor, he had passed away in Du Bois. And so we were just watching Hagen on the TV, you know, which, you know, was great. I mean, we all loved watching him, you know. But there was a real pull on my heart and a few other members of the congregation that we have able-bodied men that can teach the word. So we need to step up and do that.
Yeah.
So we set up a rotation. And, you know, schedules are busy. So we do have some relief preachers that come in from like Pocatello and that kind of thing to kind of help fill in when we can't always be there. And then thankfully my father-in-law stepped in for me today so I could stay here. So like, you know, we're really good about, you know, just giving everyone equal opportunity. And if they have a desire to do it and they want to do it, you know, pick a Sunday and you know, let's give it a go. And but yeah, so just kind of as the Lord's been working on my heart to just kind of step up as a man, not only in my home, but also in the community and in, you know, church. So I still have my reservations. I'm still kind of timid and shy, but I now know that the Lord's in it, then it's going to work out. And if he's not in it, then he'll let me know and he'll have something else for me. So
yeah.
That's
but it is cool how you saw the need and you were like, yeah, even though this isn't something I'm used to doing.
Yeah, or even maybe even want to do. I mean, now I like it. You know, as I get more comfortable and I've kind of been, the Lord's been showing me. He's like, like this, you know, they're not up there to hear a polished speech.
Yeah.
They're there to hear the word, and that's all I do is just read the word and share, and I don't have to get in the way of anything, and it's all right there for you. You just read it, and he'll tell you what it means, and there you go, and you're off to the races.
That's awesome.
So,
yeah.
So if who knows, maybe someone listening does or knows someone that lives in the Du Bois area. What's the name of the church?
It's Du Bois Community Baptist Church. I don't know the address because there's only 4 streets.
Easy to find.
Soon to be Calvary Chapel Du Bois.
Well, I don't know about that. I don't make those rules or those decisions, but But yeah.
Well, one thing I want to kind of ask, maybe tracking all the way back now that we kind of have the full story here.
Yeah.
That point where you're really, really confused about what am I supposed to be doing. You're going, talking to mentors. They're giving you maybe over-spiritualized advice. So it's your fault. What would you say to someone who's maybe 18, 19, 20, or maybe even older and just kind of sitting there in their life and it's like, I don't know what I should do.
Yeah.
I don't know what God wants me to do. What would you say to that person?
Well, like Hagen always says, when you don't know what to do what you know.
Okay.
You know, and so whatever you got, and one thing I also like to tell people is where you're at in the Bible is where you're at in life. So if you're in the Word, the Lord's going to talk to you. And also manage expectations. You know, one of my deals was I always thought I was going to hear a voice from heaven, and it's like that happens for some people, but not everybody. And just because it doesn't happen to you doesn't mean the Lord isn't talking to you. So just understand the subtlety of the Spirit and realize that whatever expectations you have, the Lord's really good at doing maybe like the opposite. I mean, we see that all the time, you know, in the Bible. Like the people expect this, the Lord does this, and it still accomplishes his purpose. And there's also a lot of verses that talk about using the dumb to confound the wise, using the weak to beat the strong, et cetera, et cetera. And so it's just like whatever maybe human or flesh or worldly or whatever expectation you have, or even over spiritual expectation, don't hold to those like they're the gospel. Hold to the gospel like it's the gospel and what the word says would be my advice.
And so did you apply that model you just said as far as moving to Du Bois? Like you just kind of like, hey, I feel good about it. And
and even, you know, and just because you maybe quote unquote feel good about it, you're still going to have maybe some reservations. I mean, I was nervous. I'm like, what if the job doesn't work out?
For
what
sure.
if we can't find a place to live? But in one day, the Lord provided both. And basically, I just kept saying, like, you know, or praying, I guess. I'm like, if this is what you want, open the door. If it's not what you want, close the door. And he'll do just that. There were plenty of jobs I applied to, plenty of houses we looked at. Door was closed right away. And then with Du Bois, it was just open door after open door after open door after open door, and now we're at where we are now because we just kept stepping out in faith, both the wife and I, to walk, pray about it and walk through it, and yeah, even if it's just for a season or if it's for the next 5 or 10 years.
It seems like Du Bois is where God wanted you, but
Yeah.
if it wasn't, it wouldn't have been
Exactly.
the worst thing in the world.
Exactly.
Like, you would always come back.
Yeah, and he opened the doors for me to come back to Salmon, and back then in 2020, and it was just open door. Hagen buying his house, having 3 bedrooms, offering one to me getting a job that could help me pay his
And
rent.
so if you need somewhere to stay and you live in the Salmon area,
Yeah,
Yeah.
we're full this year. Yeah, I have it booked this summer, so
okay.
I'll put you on the list.
Yeah.
But Jordan has a spare room. I
I
think.
don't think no.
But yeah, just just those open doors will be there
For
and,
sure.
You just need to have the faith to walk through them and trust that He'll provide, and He's provided for us in ways we didn't even think were possible, and we're super blessed, super happy. There's still struggles. We sometimes still get a little homesick, but that happens. So,
Yeah.
you just keep going.
Similar question to the one I just asked. Say a person's listening and they are feeling like they can relate to you where you were in Utah.
Yeah.
The whole doubting, I don't
Yeah.
know, I'm angry. These persons everyone's leaving me in the dust, and no one, like, just kind of confused and angry and reading, what's his name, Sam Harris or whatever.
Sam Harris, right,
Yeah, what
those
would you say
guys.
to that person, or what would you say to younger Taylor?
Yeah.
Would you punch him in the face?
Well, no. But I would say you already know what's right and wrong.
Okay.
And you're just making excuses. The word says that, we have to suppress the truth. So it's like we know what the truth is. The Lord's put that in our hearts, and there's so much evidence for Him. And it takes more faith to be in that position, as far as like having faith that whatever else you're using other than the Lord's gonna fulfill your life. Like it was harder to be in that season because it it's not right, and you do know, like anyone listening, like if you really give it over to the Lord, it's not going to be easy. It's not going to be obvious, maybe, but you're going to know for sure that the Lord is right, and that's the right way to do things, the right way to live life, and we all have the same ability to make that decision.
Yeah.
So, and that sacrifice that the Lord did for us is available to everybody equally, like Hagen always says, it's level at the cross. So, I mean, no matter what you've been through or anything, that opportunity is there, and you know how to get a hold of it. And like I said, it's not always going to make sense, it's not always going to be easy, but it's always worth it.
Yeah.
For sure. So,
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, man, you gotta find yourself a friend like Taylor.
Find yourself a friend like Hagen.
Well, there you go. Yeah.
Find yourself a friend like Jordan.
Stop.
Find
Yeah.
yourself a friend in
Well,
Jesus.
I like how you got Jesus. Yeah, I
Yeah.
like how you said that. And we'll wrap up with earlier. Guys said like we grew together reading the Bible, and so
Yeah.
now our friendship has endured
Well, I think
15, 10, 12 years.
Yeah.
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 So, like, basically, he's like, Jonathan to my David, or
Yeah.
I'm Jonathan to his David. So,
There you go.
because that is a
Which
very,
one of you's gonna die?
Well,
Uh-oh.
that is just a very, the Bible says like that is the closest friendship you
For
can
sure.
have.
Yeah.
And it's definitely unique. It's a unique type of friendship, for sure.
You're David because I'm studying this in our chapel class with the kids, and when David finally convinces Jonathan that Saul's trying to kill him, David and Jonathan meet up in the field, and it says how David kissed him, and David cried. They cried together, but David cried even more.
Oh, I do cry more.
Dang.
I have more
sheesh.
waterworks than Hagen does.
Yeah, yeah.
And I'm
That's
not
fair.
against crying. I just don't cry
You just
enough.
don't do it.
But yeah, I wish I cried
I
more.
cry a lot.
Huh?
But lately you cried more than
Oh, I'm very emotional, tender. I don't know. I don't know
Emotional,
what's going
tender,
on,
yeah.
but
too much estrogen in his
Oh,
diet or
Jeez.
something.
I don't know. I don't
Well,
know.
it reminds me what C.S. Lewis said. There's the two kinds of love. There's the phileo, the friendship
Yeah,
love, and
yeah.
there's the what's the romantic love?
Like Eros.
Eros, that love.
And then
Eros
agape.
love, the love's focused on each other. The phileo love, it's two people walking towards a goal.
Yeah.
Eros is two people looking at each other.
Yeah.
Phileo is two people looking
Mm.
at a goal. And in friendship, it needs to be centered around something.
Yeah.
And so some people build their friendships on sports. Some people
Right.
build their friendships on work or
Yeah.
kids or whatever. But when the sports stop being interesting or the kids grow up or you move your job,
Yeah.
that friendship goes away. But
Yeah.
having Jesus as the center of the friendship, yeah, you'll always have that.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter where you're at in the state or what part of life
Where
you're at.
Life, like,
Yeah,
exactly.
you can
And
always
that-
have that base
that
for the
is
for the
exactly.
friendship. So
Yeah,
If
and-
only there was a city named after that kind of love.
Phileo,
Yeah, would you
is
know?
there?
Would you know about that, Jordan?
I think there might be. Yeah, I'll have to see about that.
Yeah, you might have to get back to us on that.
Yeah, for sure.
Philadelphia. huh?
Philadelphia,
Yeah.
what a place.
Bunch
Uh-huh.
of city slickers, probably.
Yeah,
Yeah.
They'd never brand cows.
no, they wouldn't.
But you did.
I
You
did,
did?
yes,
branded cows
yesterday.
yesterday,
Yes.
And you did
yeah.
a good job, Jordan. You acclimated well.
What can I say?
So
Cool.
that's great to see. Well, Taylor, it's good having you here.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
great to be
I'm
here.
glad we got to have you on, and sometime in the future we'll do another one and
Cool.
discuss other things, maybe message prep.
Oh,
We could all kinda
Whoa,
talk
yeah,
Talk about
for
our
sure.
different approaches there and
cool, cool.
how we kind of work things out and how we teach and different things. But yeah, I'm glad you're here, and I'm thankful for our friendship.
Oh,
and
yeah.
it's super cool. So
This has
Cool.
been by far the most wholesome
Wow.
episode of the CCS podcast so
Okay.
far. It's so sweet.
I'm honored to be here.
Yeah.
And it was super fun.
For
Yeah,
sure.
I like hanging out with you guys. So.
Stop.
should we go grab food or something?
We
or-
Let's
should.
do it. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, see you guys later. Okay. Bye-bye.
will.
Bye.